the way that we perform our project, or that we perform our different stages of development of a project, it is learning from whatever we do at urban scale, which is doing community engagement, running workshops, having different people around the table from very different walks of life, very different background coming together, and to basically bridge from one another to develop things that they would have never encountered otherwise. What inspires me, it's the people in the street, the people outside, the way that they interact with each other, the way that they interact with the spaces, what is surrounding them, how they will talk to each other, how they will behave, the way that they will be dressed, the way that they will observe whatever is happening around them, and how they can take ownership of the different spaces. So I'm fascinated with usages and how, from an architect and a master planner or an urban designer standpoint, you envision something for the people to use. But what is fascinating, it is the way that they will use it that might not be what you were envisioning for these spaces to be. So that's what inspires me. I need to be outside. I need to see the people. I need to see these activities, and that excitement, that energy that I see outside inspires me, nurtures me a lot in what I do and what I design on a daily basis. What inspired me to become an architect? Been raised in an environment where architecture was social housing, affordable housing, in the north suburbs of Paris, where architecture and quality of architecture was relatively non-existent. My future was not necessarily supposed to be in architecture. So then I realized that what was surrounding me had an impact on the way that I behave, or the way that I can grow, the way that I can elevate myself. And coming from this background, I was like, well, how can I contribute to it? How can I possibly design spaces or design an environment to enable communities, to enable people to live together and to have access to good or quality environment around them, to make sure that there is no leftover in our society, and that we all deserve a certain right to beautiful, conducive, inclusive, diverse spaces for all communities. So I would say, retrospectively, this is what basically inspired me to become an architect, on how ourselves, designers, we can contribute to the betterment of the lives of all communities. How would you describe your design philosophy? The architecture school that I went to is the architecture school of Paris-Belleville, where the basic, or the fundamental principle of that school was the space, the quality of the space, the quality of the light, how we can deliver harmonious, well-designed spaces for all. So that's a bit of the fundamental principle of my architecture school that had an impact on me. Also, in this architecture school, I attended a particular studio in my year 5 for the whole year. That was Metropolis of Asia Pacific, which paved the way of my career. And that's the reason why I went to live in Asia, where, again, here all projects that we were doing were embedded entirely in research. Content, and context. So you can't design a space, you can't design a building, you can't design a neighborhood or a project without being highly contextual. So it was going through deep research, analysis, understanding data, to start designing and to ensure that the different answers that we were about to provide are adapted and accurate to the needs of the future users and to the need of that neighborhood, of that city. So that was something that was highly critical in my career, and that's the reason why that now in our office in Wito, whatever we do is highly embedded in research, in content. So our design philosophy that we call design with a cause. When we say design with a cause, is to understand the cause, the needs, the requirement, and to answer to this need. So we are very much people-centric in what we do, in the design that we do, where human is at the center of the attention. But by extent, growing from human-centric design, we look into planetary boundaries, we look into nature or natural environment, where it's essential to go from human-centric standpoint to nature or world, the planet standpoint to again protect what is happening around us. So in conclusion to that, I would say that our design philosophy is very much empathetic, to provide a certain sense of care from one another, and to make sure that the future end users have a strong sense of attachment and sense of belonging in the different spaces or different places that they will encounter and that they will dwell in. Big question, what is your favorite project? Asking a designer, an architect, a planner, a landscape architect, what is his or her or their favorite project is a big question. I do not believe that there's only one project that could be my favorite or that could be anyone's favorite. I will just give an example. I've been living in Singapore for 16 years, which of course inspires me a lot and nurtures my career and the way that we develop different projects, and the way that we approach design. There is one particular project in Singapore that is, for me, essential. That is the Bishan Park. The Bishan Park was designed by a landscape architect named Herbert Dreiseitl from originally Atelier Dreiseitl, Studio Dreiseitl, and that became Rainbow and Henning Larsen. So that piece of a fragment of the city, it was just a water catchment for stormwater, a canal, very dry, concrete, and that they transformed in this very strong regenerative design to still remain as a water catchment canal, but that became a park. And by doing this, they transformed what used to be a very dry, almost lifeless environment to this space that is bustling with life, with biodiversity, an extremely diversity of flora and fauna. And by doing this, it became a very much loved park, the Bishan Park, for all of the communities around. And so here we can see that how designers, landscape architects, planners can do good and can reverse what was before, from a very pragmatic, very functional infrastructure that prevents flooding to happen, while at the same time catching water for different uses, different needs, how we can transform that into an amazing place for the people, for the communities, to mingle, to interact, regardless of their background, regardless of their age group or ethnic group. It's a place for the people. And we can see it on the daily basis. I've been there multiple times. weekdays, weekend, night, early morning, during the rainy season, during the dry season. And there is always something new to discover. And there's always a moment where you can see how groups are interacting with each other and how nature can simply re-inspire, re-enchant, as we can say in French sometimes, people. So that's a very positive, very beautiful space, and I really shall commend once again Herbert Dreisaitl for pushing through, and also for Singapore to believe in this kind of project, because it was the first of its kind that basically now trickled down into many other similar kind of project in a Singapore context. So that's, I would say, is one of my favorite projects, and that I very much enjoy going again and again, and to make people discovering that space. What is your process to start a project? Again, for us, starting a project is highly embedded into research. Reading, exploring, analyzing, extracting information and data, whether it is literature research, whether it is just a desktop research, but also going on site, taking pictures, drawing, sketching, taking notes, interviewing people, observing the way that people are using spaces once again. So we can't start a project without this research. It takes time to do all of that, definitely. It's a longer path to do, but we do not believe as buildings and spaces like objects that will just like shout very loud into an environment. We do believe into something that is a bit more embedded into the context, and that respond to the immediate neighborhood, and also what it can provide or what it can bring to a city, to a community. So to start a project, it's research, and we write, we draw, and we have this iterative process that deeper and deeper we go into the content, because we do believe that as we know, like form follows function, function follows form. We do believe that form follows content and form follows context. So that's what is for the starting point of a new project. How do you balance function and creativity? At WITO, we do design museums and experiences and exhibitions, but also on the other side of the spectrum, master planning, neighborhood. So we have this very large array of projects, and all the way to France with also my business partner, Pauline Gaudry, where we design buildings and also refurbishment of historical buildings that already had a previous life, and that we transform into something new. Creativity can be nurtured at any point of time. The more constraint you have, the more creative you can be. So in that question, people might think that functionality should prevail over creativity, or creativity should prevail. It's not a matter of prevailing. It's a matter of, yes, balance. But let's be pragmatic. Pragmatic in the sense that what are the needs? What are the needs, and how buildings or spaces can age gracefully, and that can have multiple lives as well in their future. So whatever we design, while it may address current needs, but how it can evolve and how it can be timeless. Creativity goes hand in hand with functionality. And that's why earlier I was saying like form follow functions or function follow forms. It's beyond that. And that's why I say form follows content, form follows needs. So we should address simple needs and the functionality of a space or functionality of a building, and how creativity can augment that into memorable spaces, into lovable spaces, spaces that you have, again, a strong sense of attachment, a space that you can share with others and that you can have this sense of care from one another. So functionality shall be addressed, and creativity shall augment all of that into this project to make them successful and memorable. How do you collaborate with clients to achieve their vision? Okay. I love this question because I can easily answer to that. The way that we perform our project, or that we perform our different stages of development of a project, it is learning from whatever we do at urban scale, which is doing community engagement, running workshops, having different people around the table from very different walks of life, very different background coming together, and to basically bridge from one another to develop things that they would have never encountered otherwise. My background was also that I was the director of the architecture festival in Singapore, Archifest. From that moment, it opened up to many other activities and events that we organize regularly. We organize symposium, we organize conferences and talks, and workshops with students, with also civil servants. For example, we published a big research, Wellbeing for All, which is a framework for tropical cities and to develop cities that are inclusive, that are diverse, that respond and that address climate challenges, that are embedded into a context of Southeast Asian context. And so when we following that research, we do run workshops to share how we can use that framework, that toolkit, to basically develop or redevelop spaces, environments, neighborhoods, town, and so on. So we run a lot of workshops. So the way for us to engage with our clients, it's in a very similar manner. We do not believe that we shall not be seen as architect, as like giving a strong signature, and so people must follow the thought of the architect. It's actually working together with our client in running this kind of workshop, where it's a highly participatory workshops in this co-creation steps, co-creation stages, where at any point of time, everyone has something to say, and that can influence the project in this collective and collaborative manner. So that's what we do to work with our clients in this highly collaborative manner through workshops and a lot of different exchanges that we have with them. That is not just almost like analog or binary system, where just like having a question and answer, but more inclusive in the way that we design, to listen to the voices of everyone, and to make sure that everyone take part to the process and feel embedded and feel welcome in this entire process. What inspired Arborescence? Arborescence was designed out of multiple factors. It's an iconic project. It's a landmark in Angers, in France. It's a collaboration between different team members, Rito, Crispy, and Aumont. So we are two architect teams working on that. So it was a very strong collaborative approach, but not only between these two architects. So it was also with our client, with the future operator, with the different consultant, and also the landscape architect. There were two landscape architects as well that were part of this project. So it was basically the synthesis of multiple elements. We are based in Singapore, so myself and my team. Pauline is based in France, in Paris, with her team. So it was already within WITO, this strong collaborative approach with what nurtures us in a Singapore context, lush greeneries, tropical environment, large biodiversity, where buildings are almost becoming landscape, where you are constantly surrounded by nature. So this biophilic approach that we encounter in Singapore, we designed that together with, of course, Pauline and her team, and also with Crispy and Omon, with this idea of the tree of life, that is that almost a duality between the tree of life and also the tree house. So it was this strong desire from all of these different members of the team, of this large, harmonious, well-balanced, collaborative ensemble, where everyone had the same desire of pushing this biophilic design, this biophilic approach, to be inspired by nature, and how it can impact positively the city and how it can impact positively the future end users. So that was all of the different background that we all had in whatever was surrounding us, and that nurtured us to work together towards this, we say in French, totemic, almost like this totem, that is this landmark of biophilic design, this tree of life that has been planted and that has grown beautifully in the context of Angers. How did the context influence arborescence? The site of arborescence is unique. It's facing a river. It's facing a river. In French, we say the Maine, M-A-I-N-E, the Maine, and is surrounded by large trees, tall trees, that are relatively old trees, and that was to have this strong dialogue with the immediate context, the flow of water that is ever changing, the trees that are around, that it's in France, meaning that you have 4 seasons, moment with leaves large, and the foliage that is very well furnished, all the way to winter where you have only the branches that you can see. So there is a strong dialogue between the building and the site. And so, as I was mentioning just now, what inspired us, all of the different team members from our different background in this nature-inspired project, we were also inspired by the context. That is definitely entirely natural around, that we face the water. But also Angers itself, that is recognized as one of the most livable and perhaps even the most livable city in France, that is very peaceful and very gentle. So it was another evidence that the design would be welcome with all of these curves to continue this flow of very rounded and very calming environment. What advice I can give to younger designer? Often we are asked this question: what are the advice that we can give to younger designer? It's not an advice for younger designer; it's an advice for designer, because I 45 year young. So I do hope and I do believe that I'm still young in my mind, because designers, we are always young towards new project, new environment, new context. We always learn something new. And that's the particularity of being architect and planners and landscape architect and designers. Every day is different. We never do twice the same thing. We acquire knowledge and experience and expertise, definitely. What I do today is Of course, I have more knowledge than 20 years ago, but I hope that I will remain constantly excited by new things, to explore new territories, to explore new fields, and to remain again fresh towards that, and to not take things for granted, because it's never the case, and to be always humble from this new possible project or new possible subject. As I was mentioning earlier, we do projects that are they are cultural exhibitions, museum, and so on. Every exhibition is new. Every content is new. And every time we need to become an expert in this new theme or new content, which is exciting for us. That's why I said that there is never 2 days that are the same, because we can work on so many different subjects, that we go so much deep into the research that intellectually and emotionally it's very insightful, and it's very inspiring and fulfilling for us to explore constantly those new ideas and new content and so on. So the advice that I would give, not only to younger designers, but maybe to all of us as designers, is to remain excited with new elements, and to make sure that we will never be bored with what we do. Because the moment you are bored, then you might want to do something else to explore new things. So I think with this, I would like to thank you, Architecture Lab, for giving us the opportunity of this platform to share with your audiences about our expertise from WITO, from Singapore, and from Paris, with our teams all over the world. Thanks a lot. Thanks again.